My influencer girlfriend used me as a bank for 3 years, spending $215,000 on her career. But when I caught her with her ex on the anniversary trip I paid for, I left her stranded without a penny, and she never saw coming. What happened next? I'm 30 years old, work as a financial analyst in Manhattan, and make enough money to live comfortably in this city that basically empties your pockets every time you breathe. I guess that's why I didn't mind spending on Victoria when we started dating like 3 years ago. I mean, she had this dream of being a fashion influencer, and I thought, well, if I can help her get what she wants, why not? Plus, I was completely in love with her. I'm not gonna lie. Victoria was 25 when we met at a networking event that wasn't even in my industry. I had only gone because a friend dragged me there, and she was there in a dress that probably cost more than I made in a week at that time. She was stunning, like runway model type, and when she talked to me first, I couldn't believe my luck, you know? The first few months were amazing, honestly. We'd go out to dinner at nice places, she'd post pictures of us on her Instagram, which back then had like 15,000 followers, and I felt like I'd won the lottery. Victoria would tell me about her dream of becoming a recognized fashion influencer, that she wanted to collaborate with big brands, travel the world, all that stuff. And I thought it was great because she was passionate, had goals, and I thought I could be part of that journey. You know what I mean? So I started helping her out a little. At first, it was small things like paying for a professional photo shoot for her portfolio or buying her a specific outfit she needed for a collaboration. Nothing crazy, like $500 here, $300 there. But things escalated fast, like seriously fast. 6 months into dating, Victoria moved into my Upper West Side apartment because, supposedly, she needed to save money to invest in her career. And I said yes, without thinking too much about it. I mean, my 2-bedroom apartment had plenty of space, and I liked the idea of living with her. What I didn't anticipate was that I was basically going to become her full-time official sponsor. Suddenly, she needed designer clothes for her posts, because brands don't take you seriously if you don't wear certain things. She needed better photography equipment. She needed to travel to Fashion Week in different cities. She needed to dine at specific restaurants for the locations in her stories. And I paid for everything. Absolutely everything, because she told me it was an investment in her future and technically in our future together. Looking back now, I should have set boundaries from the beginning, but I was so into the relationship that I didn't want to seem cheap or unsupportive of her dreams. My friends would tell me to be careful, that Victoria seemed more interested in my wallet than in me, but I'd defend her saying they didn't really know her, that she was ambitious but genuine. My best friend Derek literally told me once, "Dude, you're paying for a luxury girlfriend." And I got so mad that I didn't talk to him for like 2 weeks. How stupid I was. Seriously. For 3 full years, I supported Victoria. I paid the full rent on my apartment, which was like $4,500 a month, paid all the utilities, food, her fancy gym memberships, her beauty treatments, her clothes, her trips. She occasionally got paid collaborations with small brands that gave her like $200 or $300, but I never saw that money. Supposedly, she was saving it or reinvesting it in her content. Her Instagram account grew to about 80,000 followers in those 3 years, which sounds impressive, but the truth is most of them were bot or bots because her engagement was terrible. Like posts with 1,000 likes max. But I didn't say anything because I didn't want to discourage her. I kept thinking that eventually, her big moment would come. For our 3rd anniversary in February this year, I decided I wanted to do something special. I booked an amazing house in Montauk for a long weekend, one of those places with ocean views that cost like $1,000 a night, but are worth it because they're beautiful. I was excited, you know. I thought that after 3 years together and everything we'd built, it was the perfect time to evaluate where our relationship was going. I'd even vaguely thought about the possibility of getting engaged, although something in the back of my mind told me to wait a bit longer. 2 weeks before the trip, Victoria tells me she changed the plans. Just like that, without consulting me first. She said she'd found this coastal town like 3 hours from Manhattan that looked super aesthetic for her photos and that she'd changed our reservation. I got a bit annoyed because I love Montauk and already had everything planned, but she started with how I never supported her content, that she needed fresh content for her Instagram, that Montauk was too basic, and all the influencers went there. So I gave in, like always. I canceled Montauk with a penalty fee and let her handle the new reservation, which, of course, ended up being more expensive because the hotel she chose was one of those pretentious boutique ones with a gourmet restaurant and spa. We arrived at this town on a Friday afternoon. I drove the full 3 hours because Victoria doesn't know how to drive, or rather never learned because she always had boyfriends or friends who took her everywhere. The hotel was nice, I'll admit, very Instagrammable, with those white walls and minimalist decoration that Victoria loved. That night we went to dinner at the hotel restaurant, and that's when things started getting weird. Victoria was on her phone more than normal, like checking it every 2 minutes. And when I asked if everything was okay, she said she was responding to messages about an important possible collaboration. Dinner cost like $350 for 2 people, which even by my standards seemed excessive, but it was our anniversary, so whatever. During dessert, Victoria started talking about marriage. Not casually, but like very specifically, asking me when I thought we'd be ready for that step. If I believed in completely combining finances when you get married. That kind of stuff. I told her honestly that yes, I'd thought about marrying her eventually, but that obviously we'd have to do a prenuptial agreement given my financial situation, which is super normal in New York when you make what I make. Victoria immediately got tense, told me that prenups were for people who didn't trust their partner, that if I really loved her, I wouldn't need to protect my money from her. We had an uncomfortable argument right there in the restaurant. Not yelling, but with that tension that makes waiters avoid coming to your table. We finally dropped it and went back to the hotel in silence. Saturday morning, Victoria said she wanted to go explore the town and go shopping. I gave her my credit card like always, the American Express that I'd put in her name as an authorized user because it was easier for her. Expenses. She told me she'd be back in a couple hours and left around 11 in the morning. I stayed at the hotel working a bit because I had to review some reports, and then I went to the hotel gym. 2 hours passed, then 3, then 4. It was 3 in the afternoon and Victoria wasn't responding to my messages, which was super weird because she lived glued to her phone. I sent her like 10 messages and called her 3 times. Nothing. This is where my instinct finally woke up after 3 years asleep. I opened my credit card app to see if she'd made purchases so I could track where she was, and there wasn't a single new charge since the morning. Not one. Victoria had supposedly gone shopping for 4 hours and hadn't spent anything on my card, which was literally impossible because she never, and I mean never, used her own money for anything. Something was very wrong. I put on my shoes and left the hotel to look for her. The town wasn't that big, so I thought I'd eventually find her. I walked down the main street checking the stores. Nothing. I went to the marina area because Victoria had mentioned she wanted to take photos there, and that's when I saw her. She was sitting on a bench by the dock with a man. They weren't doing anything obviously romantic at that moment, just talking, but there was something about the way they were sitting, how he had his arms stretched on the back of the seat behind her, that immediately made me know he wasn't a random stranger. I hid behind one of the food stands on the dock and watched them for a few minutes, taking photos with my phone as evidence because my financial analyst brain immediately thought to document everything. Victoria was laughing at something the guy was saying, touching his arm in that flirty way she used to do with me at the beginning of our relationship. He was tall, tan, with that rich surfer look that Victoria probably found more attractive than my office worker physique, who goes to the gym 3 times a week when I have time. I watched them for like 20 minutes, taking photos, videos, everything. At one point, he gave her a shopping bag, one of those distinctive bags from expensive boutiques, and Victoria opened it excitedly and took out what looked like a designer wallet or purse. She hugged him, and the hug lasted way too long to be innocent. I went back to the hotel feeling like I was going to throw up. I sat in the room trying to process what I'd just seen, reviewing the photos and videos over and over. How long had this been going on? Is that why she changed our anniversary destination? So she could see this guy? All the pieces started fitting together in a horrible way. Like 2 hours later, Victoria arrived at the hotel all smiley with a shopping bag, the same one I'd seen the guy give her at the dock. She showed me the bag that was inside, a Gucci or something that probably cost like $3,000, and told me she'd bought it at a cute boutique she found, and that she'd paid cash because she was using the money she'd saved from her collaborations. Lie. Total and complete lie. I had seen that man give it to her 2 hours before. I asked her the name of the store and she gave me one that sounded generic. I asked her where exactly it was located and she got nervous, started giving vague directions. I told her I thought it was weird that she hadn't responded to my messages for 4 hours, and she said her phone had run out of battery. But when I checked it, it was at 80%. I asked her directly who she'd been with, and she got angry, told me I was super controlling, that she couldn't have a moment to herself without me harassing her with messages. That night, we faked normalcy at dinner, but I'd already made a decision. Sunday morning, I woke up super early, like 6 in the morning. Victoria was still asleep. I packed all my stuff in silence, loaded the car, and left a note on the nightstand that said, "Turns out, I'd stalked her old social media during the sleepless night and had found pictures of her with a guy named Brandon from like 4 years ago, the same guy from the doc, her ex-boyfriend." Before leaving the hotel, I went down to the front desk and told the manager that my girlfriend would stay until noon checkout, but I was already leaving. I paid my part and made sure that anything additional she consumed would be charged to a separate card that obviously she didn't have. Also, and this is the most savage part I did, I went into the airline app and canceled her return ticket to New York that was scheduled for that afternoon. I changed mine to an earlier flight from the nearby airport. I basically left her stranded in that coastal town with no way to get home unless she paid for a new flight or found another form of transportation. I drive the 3 hours back to Manhattan listening to music at full volume, feeling a weird mix of rage, satisfaction, and sadness. When I got to my apartment, the first thing I did was change the locks. I called an emergency locksmith who charged me triple, but it was worth every penny. Then I started packing all of Victoria's stuff in boxes, and when I say all, I mean everything. Every piece of clothing I'd bought her, every shoe, every accessory, every beauty product. I took photos of everything before packing it as inventory. I rented a small storage unit and moved all her stuff there, paid the first month and sent her the location information by message. I blocked her number after sending her that message, and the photos I'd taken at the dock with a text that said, 3 years supporting your dreams, so you could cheat on me with Brandon. Everything that's yours is at this address. You have a month to pick it up. My phone exploded with calls from unknown numbers that were obviously Victoria trying to contact me. I didn't answer any of them. I also blocked her Instagram, TikTok, all her social media. Then I did something that was probably petty, but I felt justified. I sent the photos from the doc to our mutual friends with a brief explanation of the situation. Not all friends, just the close ones who had a right to know why the relationship had ended so abruptly. Most responded with shock and support, some saying they'd always had doubts about Victoria but didn't want to say anything. During the next week, Victoria tried everything to contact me. She sent me long emails telling me we could fix it, that Brandon didn't mean anything, that it had been a momentary mistake of nostalgia. Then the emails became more desperate, saying she didn't have money to pay for a new flight back and that she'd had to ask Brandon to drive her to Manhattan, which honestly made me laugh because it meant she'd had to admit to him that her new boyfriend had left her stranded. Then the emails turned angry, telling me I was cruel. How could I do this to her after 3 years together? That I owed her at least a conversation in person. I didn't respond to any of them. What I did do was calculate exactly how much money I'd spent on Victoria during our 3 years together. It took me like 2 days to make a detailed spreadsheet with all the receipts I could find, credit card statements, bank transfers. The total was absolutely sickening. Approximately $215,000 in 3 years. $215,000. That included half the rent that technically she should have paid but never did, all her clothes and accessories, trips, meals, her aesthetic treatments, equipment for her content, absolutely everything. When I saw that number, I felt a mix of rage and humiliation that I can't even describe. About 2 weeks after leaving her, Victoria showed up at my building. The doorman called me saying there was a woman in the lobby insisting on coming up. I told him not to let her. I went down to confront her, not because I wanted to talk to her, but because I wanted it to be clear that I wasn't going to change my mind. She was crying, like smudged makeup and all the drama, saying we needed to talk, that she loved me, that she'd made a terrible mistake. I told her very calmly that we had nothing to talk about, that she'd used me as an ATM for 3 years while probably seeing Brandon behind my back for who knows how long, and that I never wanted to see or hear from her again. She yelled at me right there in the building lobby in front of the doorman and other people, saying I was a miserable person who didn't understand how hard it was to pursue your dreams, that she deserved everything I'd given her because she'd given me her time and youth. Her time and youth, literally that's how she said it, as if our relationship had been a job for which I owed her compensation. The doorman eventually had to ask her to leave because she was causing a scene, and she left yelling that I was going to regret it, that she was going to ruin my reputation, stuff like that. Sure enough, like a week later, Victoria made a post on Instagram that was basically her attempt to control the narrative. She posted a very dramatic black and white photo of herself, looking out a window with a long caption about how sometimes the people you love disappoint you in ways you never imagined, that she'd been in a toxic relationship where her partner was controlling and financially abusive, and that she was rebuilding her life. She didn't tag me or say my name, but it was obvious who she was talking about. The post got like 500 comments from her followers, supporting her without knowing the truth, saying things like, "You deserve better, Queen, and he didn't deserve you." It made me angry, but I didn't respond publicly or anything. Several of our mutual friends did comment or sent her private messages telling her to drop the drama, and some even put in the comments that there were two sides to every story. Her post eventually filled with hate too because someone, I don't know who, started telling the truth in the comments about how she'd been living off my money for 3 years. Victoria deleted the post like the next day. What happened next was almost poetic in its justice. Without my financial support, Victoria couldn't maintain the lifestyle she'd been projecting on her social media. Her posts became less frequent because she couldn't constantly buy new clothes or go to nice restaurants or travel. Her engagement, which was already low, dropped even more. The brands that collaborated with her stopped contacting her because her content became inconsistent and clearly cheaper in production. Her account lost like 20,000 followers in 2 months. Probably the bots left or she couldn't keep paying for fake followers. Brandon, her ex who she cheated on me with, apparently wasn't the Prince Charming she expected either. Through mutual friends, I found out that he ghosted her like a month after they officially started seeing each other again. Probably when he realized that Victoria came with zero money and many expensive expectations, she tried to make vague posts about ghosting and men who don't value good women. It was pretty obvious what had happened. Like 3 months after all this, one of my friends sent me a screenshot of a story from Victoria, where she was in what was clearly her parents' house in New Jersey, trying to make it seem like it was an aesthetic decision to move to the suburbs for a while. She'd basically had to move back in with her parents because she couldn't afford rent anywhere in New York with her non-existent income. I felt bad for like half a second, and then I remembered that she'd been willing to marry me just to have legal access to my money, without a prenup, and that pity completely evaporated. I, for my part, rebooked the original Montauk trip I'd planned for our anniversary, but just for myself. I went for a long weekend in April, and it was honestly therapeutic. I walked on the beach, read books, ate good food, and basically did all the things I wanted to do without having to worry about whether they were Instagrammable enough or if Victoria was happy. I also started therapy because I realized I had to work on why I'd allowed someone to use me like that for so long. Like, clearly I had issues setting boundaries and probably had some self-esteem, things I needed to work through. In therapy, I realized that I'd been so focused on being the generous and understanding boyfriend that I'd ignored all the obvious red flags. Victoria had never shown real interest in my work beyond how much money I made. Never asked me how my day was unless she needed something. Never offered to contribute financially to anything, even when her collaborations paid her. Our relationship had been completely transactional from the beginning, and I'd been too in love, or maybe too needy for validation to see it. Victoria tried to contact me again like in June. Like 4 months after everything, she sent me an email from a new account because I'd blocked the previous one, saying she'd been reflecting a lot and realized now all her mistakes, that she'd been selfish and exploitative, and if we could at least talk so she could apologize properly. For the first time, I responded, but only to tell her that I accepted her apology if it made her feel better, but that I wasn't interested in any kind of relationship or friendship with her, and to please not contact me again. She didn't respond to that and finally left me alone. The last I heard about Victoria was like a month ago. Someone sent me her new Instagram profile, where apparently now she's trying to reinvent herself as a life coach or motivational speaker, with posts about resilience and rebuilding after difficult times. She has like 5,000 followers and basically zero engagement on her posts. Part of me felt sorry because she's clearly still trying to make this influencer dream work that's never going to happen. But most of me, I just felt indifferent, like it's not my problem anymore. I have a new girlfriend now. I met Emma 2 months ago at a friend's gathering. She's a corporate lawyer and makes her own money, which honestly is super refreshing. When we go out, she insists on splitting the bill or taking turns paying. And when I offered to buy her something nice for her birthday, she specifically asked that it not be something too expensive because she doesn't like feeling like she owes anyone anything. It's like a completely different world, and it makes me realize how toxic my dynamic with Victoria was. Do I regret being so brutal with Victoria when we broke up? Not really. Maybe leaving her stranded in that town was a bit extreme, but she'd spent 3 years draining my bank account while cheating on me with her ex. Do I regret spending $215,000 on someone who only saw me as a bank every fucking day? But I guess it was an expensive lesson I needed to learn about knowing your worth and not letting people use you. I still check Victoria's profile from time to time. Not because I miss her, but because there's something almost satisfying about seeing that the consequences of her actions caught up with her. It sounds bitter, and maybe it is a little, but after everything that happened, I think I've earned it. She's living with her parents at 28, trying to sell life coaching that nobody wants, and I'm here living my best life with someone who respects me as a person and not just as a credit card. I guess in the end, everyone gets what they deserve, or something like that.